Today on the Poetry Place podcast, we have a rare guest, Ms. Olga Foreign, who will be speaking about one or two of her selected poems.
Hello, and thank you for the invitation to Poetry Plays. I am pleased to have this moment with your audience to discuss a few of my poems with you. Your invitation stated that your audience submitted some specific questions for my poems Single to Married to Divorced to Single and Did You Not See Me? These poems are also some of my favorites as well. Would you like to begin with Sing to Married to Divorced to Single?
What sparked the initial idea for this poem? Was there a specific event or conversation that prompted you to write it?
Throughout my single and my married life, very few asked the question, did you see it coming? No one asked if you saw single or married life coming, however, once you are divorced this question seemed to be frequently asked. I wrote this poem as answer to that question. However, it's written to answer the question as if it was asked of me when I was single, when I was married, and when I was divorced. I knew I needed an answer that held no bitterness and was not regretful.
Did you revise this poem many times? And if so, what were some of the changes you made?
Actually, no, not much rewriting at all. When I started to write the poem, I was frustrated with being asked the question once again. However, as I wrote, I realized the words were reflecting feelings I had when I was married, when I was single as well as when I was divorced. Each time as I journeyed, I made decisions for survival, I looked to the future, and I accepted my faults.
Can you describe your writing process for this poem? Did you intend for it to be performed as spoken word, or was it primarily intended for written form?
I describe my process as a triggering thought. Usually, I write in response to something I heard, experienced, or observed. The initial thought is usually instantaneous, maybe a line or two. I will jot down these thoughts and revisit them later when I have thought my way through how I felt. All my poems are written to be spoken, with the full emotions of the reader. Some lines may even make you want to shout, be angry, or cry. As I continue to say, should you find yourself in my words, know that I am with you.
The phrase, women of a particular hue, is central to the poem. What specific group or dynamic were you aiming to address with this phrase, and why did you choose those words?
This line came to me first. Women of a particular hue. It was important to me for the persons whom I was addressing to self-identify themselves. It would be easy for me to assign a specific label to whom I was addressing. However, upon hearing the rest of the poem, it should be understood that any woman that stands by and allow another woman to suffer, you are a woman of a particular hue. The color of your hue does not have to be skin tone.
The poem juxtaposes historical trauma with the hashtag #MeToo movement. What connection were you hoping to draw between these two experiences?
The connection was audacity. How audacious to seek allyship through sexual assault, a weapon which was used against so many men and women who also sought justice but received injustice. The Me Too call was more important, as if the prior calls were somehow unequal, lesser, or insincere, as if only women of a particular hue could be raped from front and behind. Their need of being defended is of greater importance. To clarify, I do not condone any act of violence except self-defense. Therefore, I do not condone doing nothing when given a front-row seat to horrific violence or being the catalyst for such violence.
The rhythm and pacing of the poem feel very deliberate. How did you approach the structure and flow of the piece?
Yes, the rhythm of the poem is deliberate to allow the words to be spoken in a soft, educational, conversational tone as you would to a friend or acquaintance. It's also written to be spoken from a feeling of rage, injustice, and sarcasm. Read it both ways to understand each line and its desired effect on the listener as well as the speaker. The first line is, I don't mean no harm.
How did you feel about the possibility of certain lines being misconstrued or the emotional reactions that it may cause?
The genius about poetry is its ability to allow the reader to self-reflect and create original thoughts of their own. Thoughts that may not have occurred to them until a new perspective is brought forward. Our society suffers from a lack of original thoughts. We are being told what to think, feel, say, and do continuously. Whatever emotions, understanding, or misunderstanding you may experience after reading these poems, be proud of those thoughts and feelings as they are your own, with the only call to action being self-enlightenment.
What do you feel is the responsibility of those who have a platform to address difficult subjects, such as the ones you have in this poem?
Very good question. First, let's look at the main words in your question: responsibility, difficult, and subject. These words form a premise that is untrue and misleading. We, the people, hold the responsibility within each of us to be humane if our desire is to be identified as humans and not beasts. Placing the burned on a few is irresponsible of us as a society. Being a humane person is not a subject to be taught. Hence our failure rate of being humane as a species. Finally, there are no difficult conversations, just fear. The fear of being judged, punished, ostracized, killed, shamed, or worst, being famous for simple stating a truth. The difficulty is overcoming one's fear. It is not difficult to have the conversation.
How did you see this poem fitting into the larger conversation about race, gender, and the hashtag #MeToo movement?
Auli, I did not write this poem for it to fit in. I wrote this poem to ask a question. Did you not see me? It's an open question that, if answered, will then become a conversation. What will the answer be? Yes, we saw you, but chose to ignore you. Or, no, we did not see you. Were you here all along? It could be a cultural misunderstanding of epic proportion, or another sad tale of humanity's dysfunctional behavior. As for the Me Too movement, I answered that question. Me too.
What are your thoughts on the role of art and poetry in addressing social and political issues?
Before answering this question, I wanted to thank you for your grace, for not overcomplicating my responses with follow-up questions. I enjoy sharing my thoughts with you. My observation is that artists are the only true responders to social woes. If you want to know what is occurring in any society on this planet, check in with an artist. It's in the books, the paintings, the music, the murals, clothing, dancing, comedy, movie, or cartoon. They may not be able to fix the issues, but they usually are the first to bravely make statements using some form of expression. If all true artists chose to unite globally, and we the people support them not with fame but with courage, all our journeys would be enlightened. Instead, the best artists of our time are usually silenced. Look at the items we globally consider to be historical. Deemed worthy of our protection, are they not all created by artists?
What other artists or writers have influenced your work, particularly in addressing themes of race and gender?
Great question. I think I may disappoint some of your listeners. Truthfully, I am greatly influenced by comedians, the true canaries in the coal mine. The ones who will dress as a jester, walk up to a king and declare, "Dear man, you are naked." The ones that show us how to laugh at ourselves. The ones who are publicly vulnerable, and sadly, the ones who are under duress currently for sharing their thoughts. I think a comedian who gets you to laugh at their own failed suicide attempt, so you may also experience the pain and growth of his life's journey, has done a great public service greater than most others. A writer that has always written for society at large, in my opinion, is Stephen King. His stories are very thoughtful. Anyone can see themselves in his characters.
What messages do you hope listeners or readers take away from this poem, particularly concerning the intersection of race and gender within the feminist movement?
For this poem and all my poems, the takeaway message is: allow yourself to express yourself for the betterment of our human race. Add your thoughts to what you have read. Share your thoughts with others. Listen to their thoughts. You may be surprised to find your perceptions and thoughts are similar or vastly apart. The aha moments are when, through communicating, you discover something new about the poem, yourself, your friend, family, loved ones, or even a stranger. If you are experiencing fear, worry, or apprehension in communicating with another person, try using the book and then thoughts as a catalyst, an icebreaker, or a ticket to the table. Our gender, ethnicity, culture, skin color, accents are characteristics we are given. Let's work on actions that we can actually affect, like all types of abuses, to include the abuses of intentional ignorance and societal manipulation. The great movement I would like to start and be a part of is Choose to be Humane.
The ending. Hey, women of a particular hue. Me too. It's open to interpretation. Was this intentional? Can you elaborate on the intended ambiguity?
Yes, the ending of Did You Not See Me may be interpreted as each reader deems. Sometimes when I read that line, I find I say it differently. Sometimes as a hopeful wish, sometime dripping with sarcasm, most times with an earnest plea. It was not intentional. It's just how the words escaped me and formed on the paper. I would love to hear the audience's feedback on the poem and that line.
The poem uses strong, direct language. Was this a conscious choice to convey the intensity of your emotions? How do you choose the specific words and phrases?
I see on my screen here. This question is from an audience member regarding the poem Childish Thoughts. Well, yes, honestly, that poem was very easy to write. From start to finish, it poured out of me in less than 5 minutes. I saw the scene played out in my mind and just filled in the lines from a different perspective, one of a child. However, it was very difficult for me to read it once I was finished, and it is still difficult for me to read that poem. I did not want to include it in And Then Thoughts, but that would have defeated the point of my thoughtful journey, which is to share my thoughtful thoughts with you, even if it's intense, strongly opinionated, and painful. For those of you that may not be familiar with this poem, let me be brave and share it with you. The 11-year-old boy stood tall and proud, with a smile on his face and a frown on his brow. He looked me in the eyes, and with a lisp he said, "The American dream is not dead." He continued with an outstretched hand. "My dream is to plot and scheme until I'm a wealthy man. Like my father before me, and his father too, equal rights will never be applicable to you. Why does my country think in this day and age that being fair to others is a healthy state? We were great when we were at our worst. Let's continue our legacy of having a hateful thirst. By birthright, in this country I should be rich. Poor folks need to stop with their verbal twitch. My ancestors worked hard to kill, plunder, and rape, encouraging you to build this great state. Let me help clarify our mandate in your head. You are but a tool in my shed. So be thankful you are afforded a chance to get ahead, as I refuse to let the American dream be dead." Thank you for allowing me to share that poem with you and your audience. I know that brings us to the end of our agreed-upon time. I thought it was important that the audience heard that poem, as I was told that by a fan that it may be a response to Did You Not See Me from my subconscious.
Ms. Foreign, thank you again for spending time with us and giving some insight into some of your work. Thanks again, and we appreciate the time.
You are most welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. May your journey be thoughtful.